There is someone in every room who watches more than they speak. They sit at the dinner table, in the meeting, in the circle of friends, and they listen. They absorb. They notice the way someone's voice shifts when they're lying, the way a joke lands slightly wrong and nobody acknowledges it, the way the loudest person in the room is often the one performing the hardest. They catch everything, and yet, when the conversation moves on, almost nobody thinks to ask what they were thinking. Some people have mistaken their silence for emptiness. Some have mistaken it for shyness, for disinterest, for a lack of intelligence. But by the end of this video, you will understand what is actually happening behind that quietness, and once you see it, you will never look at a quiet person the same way again. You probably already know who this video is about. Maybe you recognize them immediately because you've sat next to them in classrooms, in offices, at parties. Or maybe, as that opening description unfolded, you felt something tighten in your chest because you realized it was describing you. The person who has been told to speak up their entire life. The person who has rehearsed a sentence in their head 4 times, and by the time they were ready to say it, the conversation had already moved 3 topics ahead. The person who leaves a group gathering feeling exhausted, not because they talked too much, but because they listened too deeply. This is not a personality flaw. This is not social anxiety dressed up in polite clothing. What is happening inside the mind of a person who stays quiet in groups is far more complex, far more deliberate, and far more psychologically interesting than most people ever realize. Think about the last time you were in a group of 5 or more people. Remember how the conversation moved. Someone told a story. Someone interrupted. Someone made a joke to redirect attention. Someone agreed loudly just to stay visible. Now think about the person who said almost nothing. Maybe they smiled at the right moments. Maybe they nodded. Maybe they offered one sentence near the end that somehow captured everything everyone else had been circling around for 20 minutes. You may have barely noticed it then. But that single sentence likely stayed with you longer than anything else said that night. That is not an accident. That is the mark of someone whose mind operates differently in social environments. Someone who processes before they project. Psychologically, there are several layers to why certain people become quiet in group settings, and almost none of them have to do with fear. The first layer is cognitive processing style. Research in personality psychology, particularly work building on Carl Jung's theory of introversion, has shown that introverted individuals tend to process stimulation internally before responding externally. In a one-on-one conversation, this processing happens quickly enough that the dialogue feels natural, but in a group where multiple voices compete and topics shift rapidly, the internal processor faces a bottleneck. They are not slow, they are thorough. Their minds are running the equivalent of a deep search, while everyone else is running a surface scan. By the time they have formulated a thought that feels worth saying, the window has closed, and rather than say something half-formed just to be heard, they choose silence. That choice, quiet as it is actually a statement about their standards. But there is a second, deeper layer. Many people who stay quiet in groups have an unusually high sensitivity to social dynamics. Psychologist Elaine Aron's research on the highly sensitive person describes individuals whose nervous systems process social and emotional stimuli more deeply than average. In group settings, these individuals are not just hearing words. They are reading micro-expressions. They are tracking emotional undercurrents. They are sensing tension between 2 people that nobody has named yet. They are doing an enormous amount of invisible cognitive and emotional labor, and this labor leaves very little bandwidth for the performance of casual conversation. To an outside observer, they appear passive. Internally, they are the most active person in the room. There is also something profoundly strategic about group silence that rarely gets discussed. In many social groups, speaking is not really about communicating, it is about positioning. People talk to establish dominance, to signal belonging, to manage how others perceive them. The quiet person has often opted out of this game entirely, not because they cannot play it, but because they see through it. They recognize that much of group conversation is performance, and they have made a conscious or unconscious decision that they would rather be authentic and invisible than visible and hollow. This is not arrogance. It is a form of integrity that most social environments do not reward, but that the quiet person cannot bring themselves to abandon. And this is where the cost begins to reveal itself, because the world is not designed for people who communicate this way. Modern culture, particularly in Western societies, has built its social and professional systems around extroverted norms. In meetings, the person who speaks first is often assumed to be the most competent. In classrooms, participation grades punish the reflective thinker. In social settings, the person who fills silence is seen as confident, while the person who sits with silence is seen as awkward. Over time, this creates a quiet erosion inside the person who does not speak up. They begin to internalize a story that something is wrong with them. They start to believe that their thoughts are not valuable enough, not fast enough, not loud enough to matter. And the tragedy is that the opposite is almost always true. The thoughts they are holding back are often the most nuanced, the most considered, the most necessary in the room. But they have been trained by 1,000 social moments to swallow those thoughts before they reach the air. There is a pattern that emerges in the lives of chronically quiet people that almost nobody talks about. It is the pattern of being deeply known by very few and profoundly misunderstood by many. Their closest friends describe them as thoughtful, wise, deeply funny, and emotionally generous, but their coworkers might describe them as distant. Their acquaintances might say they are hard to read. The gap between how they are perceived in groups and who they actually are in intimate settings is enormous, and that gap is a source of quiet pain that they rarely express, because expressing it would require exactly the kind of vulnerability that groups do not make safe for them. What makes this even more complex is that many quiet people are not unaware of what is happening. They see the social cost of their silence. They feel the missed promotions, the overlooked contributions, the friendships that never form because they did not push past the surface fast enough. And yet, they find themselves unable to perform in the way the group demands, not because they lack the skill, but because something in them resists the inauthenticity of it. They would rather be underestimated than be someone they are not. And there is something quietly heroic about that, even though it rarely feels heroic in the moment. In the moment, it usually just feels lonely. If you are this person, there is something important you need to understand. Your silence is not a deficiency. It is a different kind of intelligence. The ability to observe before reacting, to think before speaking, to prioritize depth over speed, these are not weaknesses in a noisy world. They are precisely what the noisy world is missing. The room does not need another voice competing for attention. It needs the voice that waits until it has something real to say. And that voice is yours. The fact that it comes out quieter than the rest does not make it less important. It makes it rarer. The world will keep rewarding volume. Group chats will keep favoring the fastest reply. Meetings will keep celebrating the most vocal participant. But the quiet ones, the watchers, the deep processors, the ones who carry entire conversations in their heads that nobody ever hears, they are the ones who often see the world most clearly. And if you have ever felt invisible in a group, if you have ever left a gathering feeling like you failed some unspoken social test, know this: the problem was never that you had nothing to say. The problem was that the room had not yet earned the kind of truth you were holding. If this felt like something you needed to hear, sit with it for a moment. And if there is a quiet person in your life who you have been misreading, maybe this is the moment you begin to listen differently. This is Mind Reader. We will be here when you are ready to explore the next layer.